Okay. Can you hear me now? I hope so. The fuck? You can hear me now, hopefully. That will be really good, because I'm... Hooray! It works. Wonderful. Now, that was enlightening. Sorry for that mess. Seems some setting on my computer changed that just muted all my microphones, and took a while to figure that one out. I'm very, very sorry for that. Anyway, I guess we're now fully where we should be, and I'm sorry for the chaos, but you know. And welcome everybody to this very much not Sunday pub, because you know, Matt being busy and all. If you want to join on screen, the link is on the Fireside Discourse Discord in the share your stuff channel, and you can always just text me on Discord and I'll send it to you. That's like the best thing I could come up with on this like super short notice. So I'll guess I'll have to check if other people show up here now that I'm slowly figuring this thing out. So yeah, let's start with the most important part. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope it started as as easy as it could, with the world being the world these days. And yeah, I guess we got to do the thing that we got to do, right? Cheers, everybody, and let's have a nice Sunday evening. And yeah, hello Ori, hello Colton, hello Jeroen, hello Chadia. So yeah. Well, that's a nice coincidence there, Ori, I guess. This is from a band called Bronze, who used to be called Cramp if before that, and they're like a Spanish heavy metal band who released their first album under the new name last year. It's a pretty fun, easy heavy metal with a woman singing. Hooray. Hello, Osa. How are you doing? I hope you have had a good start into the new year. Are you still on holidays, or does school start tomorrow in Sweden? Finally, hello, K2U. And yes, hello, Colton. Yeah. Hello, Britain. And hello, Kale. I guess we have a lot of different continents here already. Sorry, just had to catch up. No, this is not weekly. The weekly one is over on Matt's channel. I'm just stepping in today because I have nothing better to do, and I've been reading Redwall all day to catch up with where I should be, so I needed a break. Nice, Colton. That's really cool. How are you liking the Bone Hunters so far? I know it's a favorite of a lot of people. And hello, Daniel. How are you doing this wonderful Sunday? Oh, and I just realized that during the first sprint, I need to call my dad because it's his birthday, and I completely forgot to call him. So we'll have a fairly early sprint because I need to do something responsible for once. Oh, so Epiphany is an actual holiday in Sweden. It's only in parts of Germany. Like the southern part, the Catholic part, is celebrating Epiphany tomorrow, and well, my part of a barbaric, heathen Germany is not celebrating Epiphany, which is sad. Oh yeah. Oh, that's it. Hi, Mattia. That was the information I was missing. And hello. And hey, Alicia, how are you doing this wonderful evening? I don't have Sanderson t-shirts. I don't think I have any like book related t-shirts. Although, wait, I have two Malazan shirts that Iska Jarak sent me like years ago. I'm very happy, Colton. I have been working on them. I did not want to take a break. My plan was to keep to pre-record some, so I would not have to record while I was visiting friends over New Year's, and that did not actually work out too well. And then we played Dungeons and Dragons on the 2nd of January when I was planning on being back home again, so everything took longer than expected. But I recorded two of them today. One is already up, and the other one will go up during the next during the first sprints, which we will have to do because of me having to call my dad. And yes, once again, like if you want to join on screen, just let me know and I'll quickly send you the link on Discord, or you go to the Fireside Discord on the Share Your Content channel, and there I put the link, which should work. Hey Eva, how you doing? And Happy New Year. Yeah, Iskar Jarak unfortunately kind of had to step back from doing YouTube stuff for a while because of like family and personal stuff, and we still all hope that he's coming back. He's popped into his own Discord from time to time. We did not get a lot of snow. I mean, we had like some light snow here, but Germany's not too snowy these years. And yeah, I'm glad you have those Redwall videos. Queued up there, Colton. I really enjoyed reading the Redwall books. I'm basically almost done with the idea of doing 13. All I have to basically read is the last two, which are The Legend of Luke, which is number 12, and Lord Brocktree, which is number 13. And at this point, I'm kind of aware enough of Redwall knowledge to understand that those will be two more prequels, I guess. What with Lord Brocktree being the first Badger Lord of Salamandastron, and Luke the Warrior being the father of Martin the Warrior. So it has to be like early on. So I'm excited to find out what's going on in those. But that's something I'll deal with during sprints and tomorrow. It is in fact short for Raphael, Mattia. That's what it's short for. But I'm totally fine with the Red Army faction one as well. But no, it's short for Raphael, which is my real name, or part of my real name. And Colton, I don't know if Ericsson's a smarter person than you. I think what we often kind of forget with like books like, say, the Malazan Book of the Fallen, like these are books that someone worked on for a long, long time, right? The world building started like back in the 80s when Ericsson and Esselman played D&D together. And then he started writing and working on these stories in like the 90s, and then like 10 years later the first book was finally published, which means he's got a lot of time working that stuff out, and you're reading it for the first time, so he's got like an advantage there over you. And I think that's something we often forget when books are admittedly very complicated and complex and impressive, and it's like, well, but someone took a lot of time going back over this and making sure it all works. Something I don't necessarily do when I'm reading a book, sometimes at least. All right, we got a new guest here. And you should be on screen now, Katie. How are you doing? Can you hear me? Can you hear yourself?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I just have to check like if people show up, because I don't get like a notification, so it took a while here. Anyway, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm doing good so far. How early in the morning is it for you?
It's 6 a.m.
Yeah, that's early.
It's really early. I was thinking of going to bed, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to stay for a little while, because I was looking forward to the pub. And I thought, well, I need to get more practice at live. So I'm a little unused to it. So, yeah, it's very different to recording a video for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends, I guess. Like the one thing is, like, if you're recording a video, right, depending on how you record videos, you kind of know that you can go back and edit everything out, and you can do all of those things. And that's not possible when you do live.
No, exactly. You kind of feel like you're on the spot, and you got to be accurate as to what you say and things like that. But it's also more natural, talking to someone rather than talking to a camera.
Yeah, I agree, and I think like something like this, and obviously Matt's Pub, when it happens, has the advantage of being super informal, right? It's not a themed discussion where you have to be on point and know your stuff. It's more like we'll just hang out and have a chat with everyone that's out.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably a good way of getting used to doing live stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I need more experience at lives, because this is only my second time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I missed the first time because I was probably somewhere at a concert, I guess.
I think you were traveling. Yeah.
That's certainly possible.
I just wanted to say hello to the people in the chat. Hi, Chadia, Colton, Britton, and everyone else whoever I missed, Jerome. Yeah, hi, everyone.
So those that are usually not on the Sunday Pub, like, you want to introduce yourself to some people, because I guess people from the Fireside know you, but people from my channel don't necessarily know you as a person or what you do usually.
I guess that's true. Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy, and I have a channel. I've had a channel for almost 5 years now, actually. I didn't start in the book community, though. I started in the plant community. I had a channel for a couple of years, but I got bored with that, and I thought, really, books is more my thing. So now I basically talk about books, and I read a lot of fantasy, sci-fi, a bit of classics, and murder mysteries. So, yeah, hi, everyone.
Yeah, that's nice. I didn't even know there was that kind of community that you started in on YouTube. But then again, I mean, it's YouTube. It's got like everything, I guess.
Yeah, people don't realize that I actually wasn't always a book channel, that when I first started, I was looking to connect with other plant lovers, because I didn't know anyone in my life who had plants. But I've always loved books, and I always read. It was just not at that point in time. But everyone kept asking me about my books in my plant channel. And I thought, you know what? I think I need to start talking about plants and about books. But the truth is that you can't get bored talking about books, because there's always a new book to read. There's limiter plants you can talk about. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
have never regretted the shift. It's the best thing I did. Yeah.
yeah. It's like, I mean, I know you can get very much into plants. My mother has really become like very much a gardening nerd over the last couple of years. So every time I talk to her, she's like, "Ah, I did this with plants and this." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know nothing about this. Like, I had one plant in my life and it died, although it took a long time."
Mm.
But yeah,
Well,
yeah.
no, go on. Go
I was
on.
just going to go like, well, Kadia was asking us what we were reading, and so I was going to ask you what you are reading.
I'm actually reading The Dragonbone Chair.
Nice.
Yeah, I've read it before.
Mhm.
I don't know if this is reversed. I can't tell. But, well, anyway, The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams, the first book in the Memory, Sorrow and Thorn. I read the first two books about 30 years ago. That tells you how old I am. And I never finished the series. And Josh at Red Fury Books is doing a read along. So I thought, perfect opportunity to finish. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's a good reason to go back to it. I did reread like the first series last year. No, 2023 now, because I wanted to read the whole thing with the Last King of Ostenard also being basically done, and then that last book got pushed to 2024, and then I got distracted by other stuff. So I still have to go back and read the Last King of Ostenard 4-book series to finish my sort of like Ostenard reading. But I really enjoyed like the slow pace that the Dragonbone Chair has. It takes forever, but it's very nice getting there.
Yeah, well, it is a slower pace than some books, but I don't need a fast pace to enjoy a series. I actually sometimes like the slow pace. I like to really feel I'm getting immersed into the story rather than just racing through action scene after action scene.
Yeah. I mean, it also depends on what you're doing, right? There are stories that need like a fast pace because they, the
True.
themes you're going for. There's stuff that needs that sort of like rush of adrenaline. But if you're walking through the forest for like half of the novel anyway, you might as well take your time and look at the trees.
Yeah, that's true. Now, look, I think there's always room for action and fast-paced books, but I also do like the slow pace. I like that slow burn on occasion. Hi, everyone else who has come into the chat that I haven't mentioned yet. Hi, Daniel and Ori and Eva. And what are you reading at the moment, Raf?
I did read a lot of Redwall novels for like my winter solstice whatever celebration thing. Like last year I did read a bunch of like the Dark Elf books by R.A. Salvatore, and this year I asked people what I should read and they settled on Redwall, so I've been reading a lot of Redwall books, and they're a lot of fun and also very short, so I've read like 11 of them since Christmas, so that's a lot of mice and other rodents dying in various medieval ways.
Have you actually watched Brian Lee Durfee's
Yeah.
Redwall? It's hilarious. It was so funny.
The books are actually really good, though. I really enjoy what they're doing. Brian Jakes is a really good storyteller, and he packs in a lot of like interesting nuance and stuff, which is nice. Oh, and Alicia, you're reading Hild. How are you liking it? I love that book. But yeah, I will have to figure out what to read next now that the whole plan for like Redwall is basically over. I need to figure out what to read next.
I don't know, Hild. Which one is Hild? Is that part of the same series or is it something else?
The Redwall stuff?
No, Hild.
Hild is the first novel together with Meanwood, which is the second novel by Nicola Griffith about Saint Hilda of Whitby. So it's historical novels, and there's 2 so far. There may be a third one, who knows? It's one of those like long-going projects, and Hild is really, really good. If 6th century historical fiction is your kind of thing.
Yeah, historical fiction isn't my kind of thing. Yeah, that's the one area I'm not really interested in. But I do like science fiction. I like fantasy, but I don't know why historical fiction doesn't appeal to me anymore. I've read read it in the past, but yeah, just not my thing. But if it's good, it's good. It doesn't matter what it's on. It's just, I know a lot of people love Bernard Cornwell. I haven't read him, but he's very popular. I know on YouTube.
Yeah, I know. I'm probably the one person on YouTube who constantly says that Bernard Cornwell is bad, and then everyone ignores me. How did you like Spear, Britton? Spear is another story, another novel by Nicola Griffith. It's well, not a historical one. It's an Arthurian novella, basically, and it's a really interesting, weird, sort of like queer retelling of the Parzival part, the Parzival story, but more according to the Welsh, to the Mabinogion version, like the Peredur story. And it's really cool, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm curious what Britton thought of it.
I don't know that one actually either. Spear.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, who's the author on Spear?
That's also Nicola Griffith.
Oh, that's right. You mentioned her. I think I've actually got one of her books. I'm not sure, but I haven't read it. And if it is a book I've got, then it's something I've had for a very long time. Has she been writing for a while?
See, like her first published novel is Ammonite, and that's from like the mid-90s.
I might have it then, because I have got something from the 90s, I'd say. I just can't remember what the title is.
Well, Ammonite is science fiction, so it's a very different kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's probably science fiction that I've got. I'm not sure, actually. It's... Oh, did he? Chidia. Oh, I didn't realise you had... That's right, you did mention that. You mentioned it at last week's pub that you interviewed Nicola Griffith. Is that right?
I did do that as well, yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen that video yet. I generally don't like to watch too much about books I haven't read or authors I haven't read. I actually like to go in a bit blind when I'm reading an author. I don't know if that's unusual, but that's just what I prefer. So I've got no preconceptions when I go in. I'm just, reading the book based on the book itself.
I totally get that, like going in and not knowing too much about it, I think is something I personally really prefer when it comes to most authors, because everything else does sort of, can color your view of what you're reading and give you prejudice. And I try to avoid that. Usually I go back after reading something, and when I make like a review video, whatever about it, then I go back and do some research, because I don't want to, say something too bad if I can, avoid it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think afterwards, I'm quite happy to go and read about a book or reviews or learn more about the author, but not when I'm actually reading or when I start a new author. I just want to see what I think of it without being influenced by anyone else or anything I've seen. Hi, Ron.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you were going to read it or thinking about reading Ammonite. I haven't read that one yet, because it used to be region locked for people in Europe. I mean, it technically still is region locked, but I found a way to get my hands on some audiobooks that are only available in America.
Yeah. Well, that's, I never realized just how limiting it is. I don't understand why they region lock audiobooks. I know they've done it with movies for decades, but it still bugs me that they do something like that, because we in Australia don't always have access, say, to certain movies.
Yeah.
I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks, so I don't have much knowledge on audiobooks.
I mean, it's a general thing that you have like licenses for different regions, and none of that was like a problem back in the days of actual physical media, when you could just order something and have it imported, have like a DVD imported or whatever. But now with streaming, that's no longer the case, and you can't actually get that stuff as easily.
You can still get movies. You can still buy them from overseas, for example, if you can't get it from Australia. But you don't always need to, obviously, with streaming.
Yeah.
I don't like streaming. I don't have any streaming services except for Amazon, and the only reason I have that is because I want the free shipping for all the books that I buy. But really, I just buy a lot of movies. So, because movies is my second passion. I don't know if it's second, but it's somewhere up there. Yeah, I tend to love movies, so I watch a lot of movies.
Yeah, Ori, of course it is because of capitalism. It's just like one of those situations where you realize that capitalism is not just about selling the most to everyone, it's also about preventing other people to sell something, and that's where the region lock thing kind of comes in, which is bad.
True, it is. Yeah, I've never understood that. It's always bothered me that they region lock things. Why?
It's just like really frustrating.
Yeah, it is really frustrating. Oh, Daniel. Yeah, if only you could. Actually, no. Sorry, I missed that point. I know what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, why not? Let's sail the high seas when things are region locked.
Yeah, that is certainly one way of doing it, Daniel. It kind of depends on what you're looking for, though, because the more obscure the thing you're looking for is, the harder it is to find it somewhere out there on the high seas, because there has to be someone else who's also willing to actually help you along with that. It's a bit of a problem. And Mattia, yes, I am also using text to speech if I can't avoid it, because obviously it can be with fiction, it can be really hard, really annoying. But with nonfiction, academic texts, and so forth, I often use text to speech because that's like the only way you can get those things. For me, it's like an ebook and then use text to speech for it. Hey, Oso, how you doing? Oh, so yeah, Ori, that's true.
So K2U3, is that Mattia?
Yeah, that's Mattia.
Oh, hello, Mattia. I didn't realize. So some of the names don't match with Discord, so it's hard for me to know who is who. So I'm sorry if I missed anyone.
Now that's so that is an interesting combination, because I remember reading Naked Lunch, and Lunch may have been the one thing the furthest from my mind after I was done with that book.
Is a film based on that book, Naked Lunch? Is a film based on that book?
I have not seen the film, if there is a film based on it, but the book is incredibly psychedelic, of course, because it's about Burroughs' experiences while being on heroin, which is not necessarily something conducive to a very clear state of mind. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
So what is everyone else reading in the chat?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, what are you guys reading at the moment? We already know that Alicia is currently reading Hild, and we know that Colton is finishing The Bone Hunters.
Oh, Penny Dreadful. I love that show, actually. Have you ever been able to watch Penny Dreadful, Raph?
I have not watched it, but that's more like a choice of me not watching much TV, but yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's an interesting thing. I did not know if RoboCop is in the Naked Lunch movie.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Cronenberg might be the one director able to do justice to Naked Lunch, the text, because that one is also gross. If you haven't read it, although I assume you just haven't read the book as well, Ron. How are you liking Metal from Heaven? Oh, so I did really enjoy that one. Talk about like a fast-paced book there.
Jerome. Yes, I know Jerome as well from the Fireside Discord. But yeah, a lot of the names escape me. I don't know who's who, so I am sorry if I miss anyone.
Oh, nice. I have read the first 15 Lives of Harry August like years ago. it's one of those books where I have this issue, right? There's been a series of books, and I don't know if they have anything to do with each other, like stylistically or anything of the sorts, but there has been this plague of book titles that are the something of obscure name. And there's like 20 of them, and there's like another 15 coming out this year. And I mean, the title just puts me off. The book is called the something of person. I'm like, nah, that's not for me.
Britain's in backstage, he's saying.
Oh, give me a second. I'll put you on. How is Hokulua Road? I wanted to read that for a while and just haven't gotten there. And obviously, Six Gun Snow White being a Catherine Valente book, I expect to be really cool.
I've got to say, you're mentioning a lot of books that I don't know, Ref. So obviously, this is good for me. Yeah.
Maybe good for you, but not for your wallet, I guess.
Oh, there's always borrowing from the library, right?
There you go, Britain. You should be.
Hi, Britain.
Sorry, I didn't want you to, forget about me. How you doing?
No, sorry. It's just that the StreamYard thing doesn't, send me any notifications. So if I focus on the chat, and that's, I guess, a screen reader problem, right? Like if you just look at your screen, you see something pop up. I have to actively go through the list and stuff again to check. So I'm temporarily, chatting. Yeah. Okay. Welcome, Britain. Happy New Year. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I just finished Sledge versus the Labyrinth, and I finished Spear last night. Both of them are pretty good. So yeah, I mean, I'm not generally in the Arthurian stuff, but I thought that Spear was really well done. It's kind of like very beautifully written, I thought.
Yeah.
I'm not big on Arthurian legend either, actually. It's not something I read a lot of. I have read some, but not a lot.
Well, you should check out Raph's 4-hour video talking about the subject.
Yeah, I've seen. Well, I haven't actually watched the whole video, but I have seen parts of it, and I thought, yeah, this is just not my thing. Yeah, everyone has different tastes, right? That's not something that I really enjoyed a lot. Oh, Chadia, you and me, right? Yeah.
No, I mean, I wouldn't call myself a fan of Arthurian novels either. I just happened to end up there for reasons.
What were the reasons? I'm curious now.
So I started, So the way I ended up there was I started to do a series that I called Sunday School, where I was going through the Guy Gavriel Kane novels and using each of them as an example to show how you can use different lenses to read fantasy and looking at their inspirations. And when you go through those books, the first trilogy, the Fionnavar Tapestry, does use a lot of Arthurian themes and characters in its own sort of setting. So I decided to talk about how you can use legends and mythology in your fantasy novels, and I figured I'd have to give a quick introduction to Arthurian stuff, and then then things kind of got out of hand.
They usually do.
Yeah.
Interested in a topic, very easy to go down the rabbit hole and spend hours on something that you think, oh, I'm not really interested in this, and all of a sudden hours have passed. Happens to me all the time. So what's next for you, Britton? What are you reading next?
Well, I am hoping to start the Yiddish Policeman's Union sometime later today. I don't know, or maybe I'll be on here. I don't know, but we'll see.
I've heard of that, I think. I don't know why my camera's playing up. Yeah, I've heard of that. So I'd be interested to hear what you think of it.
Sorry, I'm eating, so I'm muting myself. But yeah, apparently it's an alternate history detective story. So we'll see how it goes.
Which one? The
Yiddish Policeman's Union.
It is a very, very interesting noir, hard-boiled kind of police story set in an alternate Alaska. So in that history, the Jewish refugees from Europe were settled in Alaska, not in, where they ended up in our timeline. And it's sort of, but only for like 50 years. So they got like a 50-year sort of like contract or whatever from the United States to settle in Alaska, and that is running out, and it's sort of playing with that kind of stuff. And it's it's all about playing chess and being Jewish, drinking too much alcohol, as one does as at a cop in a constantly raining and snowing sort of Alaska, I guess.
I actually really like hard-boiled detective stories, so it sounds like something I might enjoy, especially being an alternate history as well.
Yeah, I like Chabon's stuff. I really like The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay.
Yeah,
it deals with a subject I'm very passionate about, which is American comics, and also Gentlemen of the Road's pretty fun too.
Gentlemen of the Road is so much fun. I think like what I like about Chabon is that he's he's an interesting author in that he started out writing your contemporary realist fiction in a lot of ways, which is usually about Americans in their 30s or 40s getting divorced, apparently. And he started writing that kind of stuff, and then has slowly shifted further and further into genre fiction in a lot of ways. But he brings a lot of like the techniques that you can usually getting from your modern realist fiction writers into genre fiction. He's really good about writing characters, and he's got like a very sort of tender approach to his characters. Like you read these books and you can feel that he cares about his characters, and he's not holding back. They're certainly suffering, but he's not spiteful in any way. It's a really interesting approach, and I really, really enjoyed it. And obviously it's very similar to what Francis Buffer did with Cahokia Jazz, but yeah, I highly recommend the book. It's a really good book if hard-boiled detective stories are your thing.
It is.
Well, they're very much my thing, so I'm probably going to enjoy this. I better enjoy this. I also kind of like this copy. I know you can't really see it, Raph, but I like the cover, and I mean, I'm trying not to call you out here, but I don't want to.
No, it's fine.
I'm not helping myself here. Also, it has those like scratchy pages. I don't know what they call them, but they're like, you know what I'm talking about, Kathy? Those
texture.
Yeah.
The texture to them. I'm not sure what it's called. Does it have the rough edges as well, which I know some people hate? I love them.
Little bit. I know Jimmy hates them. My friend Jimmy Nuts doesn't like them, but
I actually like them. They make me think of old books that have been around a long, long time.
Yeah.
I haven't read much alternate reality hard-boiled detective, but I've read things like Dashiell Hammett, James Cain. I don't know if I'd call him hard-boiled detective, but who's the other one? The one who wrote Sam Spade. I've forgotten now.
Isn't that Mickey Spillane or whatever that dude's name is?
Yeah, I can't remember his name. But he wrote the other one who wrote The Maltese Falcon, or is that Dashiell Hammett? I've read some of the classic ones.
What's another?
I can't remember who wrote Maltese Falcon now, and I should remember that.
That is Dashiell
Hammett. Yeah,
it is Dashiell Hammett.
Yeah.
There's the Sam Spade stories. There's the Thin Man ones. I like those. There's also. It's slipped my mind now. I'm going to blame the fact that it's really early in the morning and I should be in bed.
There's that.
Yeah, one of my yes, I'm hoping
thank you, Eva.
Start that.
Raymond Chandler, yes, thank you. That's the other one I was thinking of, Raymond Chandler.
Raymond Chandler is the one with the Marlowe stories, and I constantly confuse Philip and Christopher Marlowe, which is bad.
I've mixed up stuff all the time.
Although I wouldn't know who got into more bar fights, Christopher Marlowe or fictitious Philip Marlowe.
No, dear, I have not been to bed yet. I woke up late. I was looking forward to the pub, but Matt was unavailable, and then Raph very kindly decided to have what did you call it? Spontaneous Sunday tailgating. So, yeah, I thought I need more practice lives, and it'd be nice to have a chat with other people about books.
Yeah.
And talk about
I haven't really read a lot of alternate history stuff either, like Man in the High Castle and some other like.
I've read that.
Demidrag, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed. I've seen your comments on the Redwall videos. I'm glad you enjoyed them. I have to get back and actually reply to comments again now that I'm back at a computer and not on my phone. But that'll have to do to wait until tomorrow. But I'm very glad you're enjoying them. I really enjoyed reading the books as well.
Also, please do. Well, I haven't read The Big Nowhere yet, though I do have it. I got it for Christmas. But LA Confidential is a great book. And
who's the author again? You've talked about him before.
Me? Oh, yeah. James Ellroy.
That's right. That's right. A lot of these I've seen in films. A lot of these books that you're talking
Good movie
about.
Too, I was going to say.
Yeah, I like films. But I find it really hard to read the books once I've seen the films because I already know how it's going to end. So I tend to be reluctant to pick those up. I do occasionally, but it's like I already know this story. There's nothing really new here unless it is quite more detailed than the film, which does happen, of course.
Yeah. But are you going to watch films if you have read the book before? Or is it just like the other way around that's a problem for you?
I always try not to watch anything that I'm intending to read. But I saw a lot of films when I was a kid and as I was growing up, and sometimes I just watch the film not knowing that it's based on a book. So, yeah. But it's not deliberate. If I know that there is a film out there and a book that I really want to read, I won't watch it. Yes, same, Ori.
Yeah. Well, I just recently got back for reasons that have like very little to do with adaptations. I got back to listening to parts of the incredible soundtrack for the animated Return of the King movie thing from the 1980s, and now I have the "Where There's a Whip, There's a Way" song stuck in my head, which is really bad for multiple reasons.
Yeah. It's like I was reading the Never-Ending Story and I could not get it out of my head. It was just playing non-stop as I was reading the book.
Yeah, that's a really good approach, Kadia. That's a really good approach there. Okay, I have not read The Magicians and I haven't watched the show. I've seen a general YouTuber whose videos I sometimes watch put out like a 4.5-hour video on mostly The Magicians, I think.
Wow.
I haven't watched that one yet either. I mean, I started it and then I haven't moved beyond that part because I got sidetracked by stuff. And even I don't have time to watch 4-hour video essays every day.
But you do make them from time to time.
Chidi, are you saying you haven't finished A Song of Ice and Fire because you've seen the show? I actually read it before I watched the show. Well, yeah, I'm one of these who actually read the books when they came out.
Yeah. Kadia, I guess in this case, you'll have to wait for George R. Martin to forget the show and then he'll finish the book and then you can continue there as well.
Yeah.
I started reading the books around 2003, like before Feast for Crows came out, because a friend at university handed it to me. He's like, "Hey, I just came back from like visiting family in the US, and a friend there gave me these books, and I've started reading them. You got to read this." And I'm like, "Okay, I guess I got to read Game of Thrones now."
I actually bought it when it came out, and this was very new with the internet. It was in the early mid-90s, and it was on a bulletin board or something that I was chatting to someone about fantasy. What a surprise. And they said to me, "You have to read Game of Thrones," because it had just come out. I said, "Well, it's actually on my shelf." And they said, "No, you must read it." And I remember still how shocked I was at the ending because I had never read anything like that in fantasy before. And I thought,
Yeah.
I can't believe that actually happened.
Yeah, I think
You remember things like that?
I haven't read the Magician's books because I've just heard they're like an edgelord Narnia / Harry Potter, which doesn't really interest me. But his Arthurian novel is, I mean, I might try that, but we'll see.
I do very much enjoy The Bright Sword. It's a good book. It suffered from the fact that I had read. I think it's really good. It suffered from the fact that I had read like so many other Arthurian novels before that a lot of the stuff that he does that feels probably fairly new to people that have not, read By Force Alone and have not read Spear and anything of the sort go like, whoa, we have a trans man in there as a knight. That's new. It's like, yeah, is it no? And so,
well, I mean, Spear has a woman who pretends to be a man who tries being a knight. So I mean that
Yeah, it does. That's the thing. Is like if you have looked at these different, I have read like a lot of contemporary, what you might call postmodern Arthurian novels. Then it is no longer as sort of like revolutionary as it may be to people that have, maybe not, read anything Arthurian since they maybe looked at the Once and Future King or maybe the abominable Warlord Chronicles.
Yes, we know about your dislike of Bernard Cornwell.
He's very popular in the bookstore here in Australia. You always see his books. But yeah, they just don't really appeal to me. I don't think I'll read him, but I want to try Guy Gavriel.
I'm not going to touch The Mists of Avalon, but that's for personal reasons, not because I think the books are going to be bad.
I've actually read them.
They are bad. Okay.
I read The Mist of Avalon, and I don't think it holds up particularly well for all kinds of reasons that go completely beyond just anything Marion Zimmer Bradley. Personally, I just don't think it's a very good book because it. How to put that? It is a very specific form of. Second wave feminism meets late 70s neo-paganism that is full of very, very problematic aspects in there, right? So it doesn't actually hold up that well. And it has like an edgelord hatred for Christianity that doesn't necessarily come off as like, it doesn't work as well anymore. I think it was really sort of like revolutionary in a lot of ways when it was published in 1980, but that's like 35 years ago.
Yeah, I liked it too, Daniel. I really enjoyed seeing a book from a female perspective in a fantasy setting. It was not very usual back then. So for that, I love that.
I don't know.
My grow lights are turning on. I'm just going to turn them off.
It just seemed like, well, what if Arthur was pagan?
Oh, it's a lot more than that. It's really more about the female's perspective about the Arthurian legend.
It is, but I think it fails there as well because it's about a very specific form of femininity that you get with Morgaine. But on the other hand, when you look at like the portrayal of Guinevere, it's absolutely atrocious, right?
I've never liked her character though. I've always disliked her character.
Yeah, but that's totally fine.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. But being basically, well, she's hysterical, and now she's also a Christian, which is clearly bad. So I'm like, I don't know, man. That's going a bit far.
Yeah, look, it's been a long time since I've read it, and I did read it more than once. I really like it.
Oh, that's fine.
But I know that it's got some issues that you don't particularly enjoy in it. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it. But as I said at the time, there were so few books featured female protagonists that, I really loved it for that. Hi, Asa. Hi, Ada.
Colton, I have not yet read The Buried Giant, although I already own it and it is downloaded onto my phone on my Audible. It's a matter of time. It may happen next week or so. But it's in the voting for an offline book club I have with some local friends here, and so I'm holding off on The Buried Giant until that sort of like vote is in and we have decided what to read next. Because if they decide to read Buried Giant, then I'm going to read Buried Giant. If they decide to not read Buried Giant, then I'm going to read it anyway. But then I read it immediately and not just wait for the book club to catch up or anything.
I haven't read The Buried Giant, but I've heard very mixed things.
I know The Giant. I don't know that one.
Neil Gaiman liked it though. Kazuo Ishiguro wrote.
That's right.
Also, you don't need to read By Force Alone before you read The Hood. Since one is about Robin Hood and the other one is about Arthurian stuff, there is one or two sort of characters that kind of show up in both books as, being part of like sort of British mythology, but it's more like a cameo kind of appearance than anything else. So you don't miss much if you haven't read the By Force Alone first.
Now, I haven't read any Ishiguro, but I have got Remains of the Day, which is also based, or a film is based on that, which I've already seen. But still, I want to read it. It's been a long time since I saw the film. And everyone's talking about Ishiguro at the moment, I think. Do you like him, Britton?
Who?
Ishiguro.
Oh, I haven't read him yet. I've heard mostly good things about his books. I just know The Buried Giant is kind of a mixed bag amongst fantasy fans. Ursula K. Le Guin ripped on it. It was pretty funny. I read her essay talking about it. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, but that's because Ursula Le Guin was always really funny when she was
when she was savagely ripping on fantasy novels.
Oh yeah.
I think she would have been great to talk to.
So I've heard from everyone who's ever had the pleasure of talking to her, but just reading her essays, that woman was just incredibly good at being mad in words.
Oh, stop it with the gaming jokes. I don't want to talk about that today. No.
Well, I'm in the middle of the Earthsea books. I just finished the second one last month, so I'm going to continue. I like it, but I'm not really loving it, and I'm not really seeing why people are raving about Earthsea. I don't know if that's controversial. I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm just not seeing this massive appeal in her fantasy.
Somehow that doesn't shock me, Daniel. She came up with the magic wizard school first, so I mean, I'd be pretty pissed off too. J.K. Rowling's getting all the credit.
I'm sorry you couldn't do By Force Alone, Alicia. What was stopping you? What put you off? The sheer amount of swearing and violence, or was it something else? Because I can understand that it's not your run-of-the-mill Arthurian story when you're expecting something Arthurian and then you get By Force Alone. I get that, so I'm just curious what put you off that book.
I want to get that big Earthsea book with the Charles Vess artwork. I'd love
They're beautiful. That. Yeah, I mean, I'm not disliking the Earthsea books. I'm just not seeing how profound they're supposed to be or why people are raving about it. I think they're good.
It takes a minute to get going, but it's
possibly. I've only read 2, so I need to read a bit more, obviously, before I decide on the whole series. I think it was fresh. Some of the tropes, I think she twisted them a little compared to more traditional fantasy. Yeah. And that may be why people love them so much.
Yeah, I mean, she does a lot of things that aren't the same way that, Marion Zimmer Bradley taking a female perspective to epic fantasy with Mist of Avalon. What Le Guin did with the Earthsea stories was very much doing something similar by twisting stuff. And the second book you have, and later books you have female main protagonists. The first one has a very deliberate sort of Jungian approach. The whole plot is basically talking about Jungian psychology, which I don't necessarily approve of, but hey, it's certainly something different, like solving problems not through violence, but through other means, for example, something she's, putting in there in a way that is new for fantasy.
I like that about it.
Yeah.
I did like some of the way she did twist some of the old tropes, but I just wasn't blown away by it. That's all. I liked Tombs of Atuan. That was the second one. I think I liked that one better in some ways. That was more, I don't know, more personal about one particular. Well, actually, that's not true. The first one was like that too. I just really like that kind of interplay between the two main characters.
Yeah. I think like one thing with like Le Guin is that she has a very specific style for writing that can feel somewhat spare or bland nowadays, because she's not going into, a lot of times at least, not going heavily into like too much description or like, but she's still very much writing in a relatively sort of like distanced voice compared to some of, more contemporary or modern writers, which go much closer to your characters. And I think that can make us, especially something like Earthsea, feel a bit more distanced, I guess, which makes it harder to have like an emotional connection to the characters in a lot of ways. I guess for that you have to read The Word for World is Forest, which is, her being really, really mad at people chopping down trees.
I actually did like her writing, though. She's a very spare writer, and yet she can evoke so much in just a very short sentence. I actually like that about her writing.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I'll have to read some of her sci-fi and see what I think about. Yeah, a lot of people love her sci-fi, but I've always been told you've got to read Earthsea. So
yeah, I read Earthsea or one of her science fiction novels. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Whatever you're in the mood for, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Man, Chadi is very sweet. She's like, if you lived closer, I'd give you that version. I'm like, man, because I have a local bookstore that sells it. I'm like,
yeah, I've read a bunch of her sci-fi, and I do enjoy her sci-fi often more because it's, like Left Hand of Darkness is just a really, really interesting and good book for what it tries to do and what it does and what it fails at doing, simply by someone trying. Because at the time there's like there's Ursula Le Guin and there's Joanna Russ and there's one or two other. There's not that many women successfully writing fantasy and science fiction in the 60s, and she's just like doing the best she can with that. And the older she got, the more cantankerous she got in a lot of ways, which only made her stuff better.
Yeah, I think that's.
Would you say she's like the grumpy old woman of fantasy?
So what did you say, Britton? I missed you there.
I was saying, sorry. I was saying, is she like the grumpy old lady of fantasy?
No, we're all grumpy old ladies once we get older.
She was also just like, I mean, she has a lot of like very, valid concerns about stuff that annoyed her, like the Bundy family taking over that wildlife reserve in Oregon and stuff like that. That made her very mad, understandably.
Ted Bundy's family?
No, Clive and Bundy's family.
I know she didn't like capitalism, so I'm sure you appreciated that, Raph.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that I appreciate about Ursula Le Guin, and partly that is, her being an anarchist. Partly that's her being, just willing to own up to her own like failures in a lot of ways. Like, there's like 2 essays where she reevaluates what she did with Left Hand of Darkness, like 20 years later and 30 years later, going like, well, clearly I did some stuff wrong, because that was, me being feminist in the 60s. Now it's feminism in the 80s, and we have changed. And in the 90s, we have changed some more. And I'm like, authors being willing to constantly re-examine their work and re-examine their ideas is something that I highly appreciate, because it's very, very fucking difficult, is what it is.
Also, she went to the same high school as Philip K. Dick. Fun fact. They did not
Really?
know each other. Did not know.
Yeah. Do you like Philip K. Dick?
Oh yeah. Big
Yeah.
fan.
Which
Yeah.
one's your favorite of his?
Probably A Scanner Darkly. It's like his,
That's a psychedelic masterpiece. It's also like incredibly depressing.
it's like the one that really touched me the most. It's either that or Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. I like that one a lot too.
I just read
Because it's just a really fast moving read and it's really keeps your attention.
I did really enjoy. I enjoy Ubik for what it does. I really enjoyed what's it called? Flow My Tears, the policeman said, which is incredibly paranoid, but it's Philip K. Dick, so it's kind of built in.
What of Philip K. Dick stuff isn't paranoid though, Raph? That's the real question.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I've got Ubik to read soon. I don't know when, but that's one that's on my list to read this year.
But no, A Scanner Darkly. I mean, that one I felt had. I think it's his most moving one. It's most human, I think. Though most of them are very like. I had a friend of mine I had on my podcast a little while ago, and he's like, with Philip K. Dick's work, you could tell like he kind of reached really deep into a part of himself to make all those books that he wrote. I'm like. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. I guess that's what I like about his stuff.
All right. Shall we try to do one of them sprints so I can call my dad before he goes to sleep? Because
I'm gonna dip out real quick. I'm gonna watch a friend of mine stream, but I'll see if I can come back. But we'll see.
All right. Then let's all do that. And go for like half an hour of reading and stuff, and I'll be back at like 45, which is 9:45 for me, and whatever it is for wherever you are in the world. So let's do all of that.
Something 45.
Something 45. Unless you live in like one of those weird half-hour time zones, in that case it would be 15. But I'm pretty sure you can all figure that one out by yourselves. So please mute yourselves, and we'll be back in for 30 minutes. Well, I guess we're back. I hope everyone had a good sprint and did get something done.
I didn't get anything done. That might be a hint. It's time for me to go soon.
Yeah.
Because it's very late and I haven't had any sleep. So
Yeah, that's understandable.
I hope everyone else, though, had some good reading done. Did you get some reading done, Raf? Or some stuff?
I did call my dad for his birthday, which, I missed doing, forgot to do all day. And I did upload the next part of the Redwall video series, which is currently processing and should be, viewable in a couple of minutes. And I read another chapter of the next Redwall book because, that thing ain't stopping anytime soon, which is, part of the problem.
How many books are there in the series?
There's 22. I said I'd do 13, and I'm done with 11 and have started the 12th now.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But if you're enjoying them, why not read them all? If you enjoy them.
Yeah, because they do get somewhat repetitive, right? They're children's books. And at some point, they do sort of like always tell the same story. And if you read one per year, that's totally fine. But if you read like 12 of them in like one go or 13 of them in one go, you notice sort of like the repetition more. So I'll definitely read the rest of them at some point. I just, I guess I'll take a break first because at this point, I'm done with it.
No, that's fair enough. I read the Lemony Snicket books last year.
Yeah.
I'd never read them before. I'd seen the first film, and whilst I really enjoyed them, after a while I found I just couldn't read a lot of them at the same time. I needed breaks between them, and I enjoyed them more that way.
Yeah, I totally get that. And hey, Apollo, how you doing? And of course, a Happy New Year. Oh, 2 more chapters in Metal from Heaven. Those are fairly short chapters, though, right? Like, I don't think they're super long, but a lot of stuff happens, and a lot of trains get blown up and other cool things happening. A Harlequin romance. I have no idea what that is because that seems to be very far out.
Romances.
Okay.
I don't know. Actually, there's also new ones, but they've been around for a very, very long time. You used to be able to get them. They're only about 200 pages. I've read tons of them in my youth, I will admit it. But they were like everywhere. We have newsagents as well as bookshops, and they'd always sell them then. They'd come out every month, like 10 different authors, 10 different titles. Very, very popular. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess I'm just not the target audience. Also, they seem to be a very like English language specific thing. So obviously they never got that like mainstream sort of like, I guess, publication that you got over there. Like, I'm pretty sure we have like a German equivalent for that, but I don't know it.
I'm sorry, Ref. I spoke over you. What was that?
I said like I'm sure there's like a German equivalent that I have no idea about either because
It's apparently the romance genre is one of the most, if not the most popular genre in books, and they sell millions of them in Australia, of course, because they originally came from UK. They were called Mills and Boons, and I know they're called Harlequin in the States, and now it's Harlequin romances, but they're just very generic, very formulaic romance. There's really not all that much different between one book and another. They all have a happy ending, basically. Yeah.
I mean, I get it. It's like it's not for me. I'm clearly not the target audience, but I do understand the idea of having a certain, the kind of book where where it's going, which is, a bit of a holiday from like reality for like 200 pages.
Well, for me, they were just pure escapism. They were things could read really quickly. You always knew what was going to happen. There was no surprises. There were good fill-ins in between other things. But, yeah, they've changed too over the years. It's so bizarre. I read them when I was very young, so I was, in the 70s. You'd be lucky if you saw anything that was a little racy. Now they're very different. Yeah, they're much more graphic today than they were then.
Yeah, I mean, apparently that's all that Book Talk's talking about, and I still haven't made my way over onto Book Talk, which I guess is maybe a good thing for my sanity.
Me either. TikTok doesn't appeal to me. Yeah. Oh, apparently Eva was saying she's read something that might be an equivalent. The German.
I have like the best German Heimatroman ever, which was a best of album by a German punk band called Terrorgruppe, and they made like a Heimatroman about their home, which is Berlin Kreuzberg, and it looks and it is designed like all the German Heimatroman, and they got like a cease and desist from like the main publisher of those kind of novels in Germany, that is Bastei Lübbe, because it looks the same thing. So they had to withdraw them from like circulation. But I was lucky in that I went to the record store like on a Saturday, and they were supposed to come out on Monday, and they're like, hey, we got them, and we just also heard that we are not allowed to sell them on Monday. We have to send them back on Sunday, but do you maybe want one? And I'm like, hell yeah. So it's like a Heimatroman, like a very sort of like romanticized thing about like about Germany, but it's all about punks getting drunk and taking drugs, which is nice.
We don't have anything like that. They sound kind of interesting. I like reading weird things like that about another country that I don't know all that much of, or about today. I mean, not about the past, but yeah. I don't know if we've got anything equivalent to that in Australia. Rob, you're not the only one who feels old. Sometimes I look at the grey hair and I think, I don't know if YouTube is really the place for me. But there you go. I'm enjoying it. That's all that matters, right?
I think that's exactly. That's the point. It's like, as long as you're having fun, that's all there is to it at the end of the day, in a lot of ways.
I don't know. It surprises me sometimes. I never thought that I would be doing YouTube, and here I am 5 years and I'm still doing it, and I'm still enjoying it. In fact, I think I'm even enjoying it more. Yeah,
but I mean, I think especially if it's about stuff that we don't necessarily have a lot of people to talk to in our like physical sort of like environment, like for whatever reasons, whether it's a hobby like books or some other, it's like it allows you to sort of like find people that think like you, which is probably one of the reasons why a lot of people on YouTube and other parts of this kind of social media often have certain there's a lot of people with different like mental health struggles and all of that stuff out there, because finally we can talk to the people that have like similar experiences to ours, and that helps a lot in these kind of ways. And I think BookTube is the same thing for people that are very interested in books, and that's not as popular as might think in general, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, I have a few friends who read, but they don't read the same genres that I read. So, of course, having a YouTube channel means you get to connect to other fantasy lovers, because that is my favorite genre.
Yeah.
I have not read Fourth Wing. Yeah. I know some people like it. Yeah, romantasy is not really my thing. I do wonder sometimes if I just like hearing my own voice, and that's why I have a YouTube channel. Maybe not, but I just really like talking about books, even if people disagree with me. It's actually more fun when people do disagree with you, because then you can really have a discussion.
That exactly that. Also, that is very funny. Although I have to say, I get recommended Fourth Wing all the time as well. I have very little faith in Audible's recommendation algorithm when it comes to those kind of things. Like, I was looking for some more stuff for my Mormonism project, and I was searching for biographies of Brigham Young, and I got recommended I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harlan Ellison, which, brilliant book, don't get me wrong, but the connection to Mormonism kind of escapes me there.
Yeah, I can't see that either.
I don't know if Fourth Wing is terrible or not. I have not read it, of course. I don't think I'm the target audience, which is why I haven't read it, because what's the point of me reading a book that is not made where I already know that I won't like it? I won't have like the background to understand whether it's a good romantasy or a bad romantasy, because I haven't read any romantasy. And then me being, well, this is clearly not made for dudes in their 40s. It's not exactly what you might criticism, right?
But do you have to be the you have to be the target audience. You can still enjoy a book even if you're not the target audience.
Oh yeah, of course you can. I don't think that's not my point. I think like it's more that if I don't like the book, that is very much a me thing and not so I might read it at some point, but I don't think I'd be in a position where I could give any sort of like fruitful criticism, because I just don't. I lack the context and go, well, clearly this is not for me because it's about teenagers being horny, and I'm like, that feels like I'm the wrong audience. I might still enjoy it, but I don't feel a pressing need to try this book for now.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
Personally, Ron, I really like the Anne McCaffrey books, Dragonflight as well, the first one. And from what I have read, it's much better than Fourth Wing, but I haven't read Fourth Wing, so I can't really say. I think sometimes it's good to step out of our comfort zone and read something that the dragons are horny. I'm sorry. The dragons are horny? Okay. Okay, no. Yeah, I don't think that's going to appeal to me much. Jane Austen, Jane Walton? Jane Austen with dragons? Now that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I mean, also, no, I wasn't commenting on the quality. I'm just like, Fourth Wing is currently hyped no matter what. As soon as you have ever looked at any book that involves dragons, you will get like Fourth Wing recommended on Audible. It doesn't matter. I get it recommended no matter what I buy at this point. I'm like, so I just bought Cannibal Capitalism by Nancy Fraser. How does Fourth Wing come into this? So yeah, it's just weird.
Yeah, I don't go by recommendations by YouTube, Goodreads, or any of those places. They don't really know my tastes at all. And I think they just try to push whatever is most popular. You see Fourth Wing everywhere if you go to the bookstores. And, not my thing. So I doubt I'll ever read it. I don't think that Anne McCaffrey is anything like Fourth Wing, personally.
Yeah, I guess it's certainly for like a very different audience. That's like the first part. I like writing these kind of books in the 60s and 70s is very different from writing them in 2023. Yeah. Also, I think what's her name? Rebecca Yaros started out as a regular romance writer and then pivoted into adding dragons because clearly fantasy is selling at the moment. So she comes from a romance, like a regular romance background, and that's an interesting thing in itself, but I think like Anne McCaffrey came from like a fantasy and science fiction background and just said like, hey, let's make science fiction, but like let's add dragons because dragons are cool.
Yeah. I loved them when I read them back in the 90s. I thought that was so much fun. And different.
Ori, I've heard good things about Tooth and Claw. I have not read it yet, but I've also not read any Jane Austen yet, although I have just purchased a 183-hour audiobook collection on Audible with all Jane Austen novels and all the novels by the three Bronte sisters. So I'm gonna get fucking educated on 19th century British romance.
Have you read any of the Brontes?
I have not yet. It's one of those things that don't happen in English class in Germany usually. So I,
of course.
and then it kind of, it's not necessarily the kind of thing you start reading as like a dude in your 20s. If you're like all into punk rock and heavy metal, and then Jane Austen is not the kind of book you gravitate towards. So it took a while, and I'm like, it's certainly a very, very large hole in my education, and being aware of having read some Jane Austen and, some Wuthering Heights and some other Bronte stuff, feels like something I should do, just so I can get the fucking literary references in all the books that I'm currently reading. So I'm going to do it now, and maybe I'll just really enjoy it, or maybe I'll just be bored out of my mind. We'll see.
Well, we had to read Pride and Prejudice in high school. I don't remember enjoying it all that much. I thought it was overhyped personally. I preferred it as an adult, but maybe that was also partly that I've never been told what to read. So having to read it for school meant it was a chore rather than a book I was picking up for fun.
Yeah. Ron, it's not splitting hairs, it's splitting scales. It's about dragons. Get it right.
Well, I can't speak about contemporary romance, but I actually prefer Georgette Heyer to Jane Austen. Yeah, maybe that's controversial. It's not meant to be. It's just I like her humor. No, did I say it was overhyped? No, I'm not saying that Pride and Prejudice is overhyped. I just didn't enjoy it when I was young. I think I needed to be a little bit older to appreciate what the story was saying.
But isn't the thing with Austen that while she's technically writing romance, it's also heavily, irony tinged criticism of Edwardian England in a lot of ways, that a lot of modern romance, by being formulaic, does, I guess, avoid being too critical of, because you want to provide escapism and not people being mad about the world again.
There's very little, or there was, I should say, because I'm not reading any romance and I haven't in a long time now, but in the past, in the 70s, 80s, even perhaps 90s, when I read some, you'd very rarely see any themes in the books. It was all about the romance, it was all about the sex, and that's about all. There was no substance to the stories, very few. If you did find them, you'd really have to dig. But I can't speak to modern romances today. They're quite different, I think.
Yeah. See, I haven't read Wuthering Heights. I agree. The title is really good. The problem that I have is that, there's a guy called Heathcliff, and I don't think I can read that book and not think of a fat orange cat.
Yeah.
That may have ruined the book for me. But I think the other part is I've never read any of Austen or of the Brontes, and it's certainly outside of what I usually read, but I think it makes me a better reader if I also have read, not only reading the stuff that you're always reading, but reading outside of your wheelhouse, reading some crime fiction, reading some romance, reading some comedy, reading whatever. And I've avoided romance because, I'm a dude, I'm very insecure about my feelings. So it takes a while for me to figure out that I can actually do this. And, I'm excited. I'm gonna be very educated, and I'll just speak in Edwardian English for the rest of the year. Hopefully not.
Well, I mean, you could try one and see what you think.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to read all of Austen's works. You could try one of the Bronte sisters and see what you think.
Yeah, I know, it's like all of them in one audiobook for one Audible credit felt like the better deal. And if I read them in for the next 20 years, it's still a good deal.
Totally agree with you on that. Yeah. I agree with you. A romance does not need to have sex scenes to be good. The romance is a completely separate thing from the actual sex, I should say. Well, not separate, but it shouldn't be the emphasis anyway. Ron, I haven't seen much toxic masculinity in you. Not yet, anyway. She's funny. I actually think Georgette is funnier.
I mean, from what I know, the Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights is a bit of a dickhead himself, so I guess the cat is, an apt image there.
Yeah, he isn't a pleasant character, Heathcliff.
I mean, that's like from what I know about the book is that it is. Yes, I would agree with you, Alicia. It's not actually romance. It's far more about toxicity and once again like class stuff, right? Heathcliff is the guy who constantly feels like an outsider and then does things that might not be smart.
I mean, it has romantic elements in it, but it's not really at its core a romance. I agree with that.
I think like the Pride and Prejudice thing. The one thing I know about Pride and Prejudice is the Terry Pratchett joke in Snuff, where he meets all these women and talks to them about Sam Vimes, and then one of them is like, well, I want to write like a novel about the difficulties of finding love and so forth. And Sam Vimes, the cop, goes, well, that doesn't actually sound really interesting to me. I think you should add this and this and this, and talks about like about police work. And then the book gets published and it's called Pride and Extreme Prejudice, and it just makes me laugh. It's a cheap joke. It's a very cheap joke, but I appreciate the fact that Terry Pratchett is willing to go there nevertheless and go like, well, look.
Yeah. I haven't reached Snuff yet. I'm actually on Thief of Time is my next Pratchett. I have 10 more.
That's a nice
one. Yeah. I've been reading them for the last few years. Last year I didn't read as many as I'd like, but this year I'm determined to finish all the Discworld books. But yeah, I've got Thief of Time and then I think Night Watch. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Thief of Time is really cool in a lot of ways. Night Watch is probably one of my favorite. Night Watch is one of my favorite because it might just be the darkest one.
Night Watch, you mean?
Yes. Yeah, Night Watch is a very dark one. It's a very angry one. It's probably like one of the darkest in that humor is much more sort of like pushed to the back. It's a really good one. It's Sam Vimes one, obviously, and it does interesting things.
I do like the watch books. I do like the City Watch. Yeah, they're fun. The Guards. What do they call it? They call it City Watch, don't they? Yeah, it's
they call it City Watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do appreciate all of them.
Yes.
I find it the easiest to get into the City Watch books.
When I started, I really loved the death ones and the witches. But as I think I've gone through the books, I've learned to really love the City Watch as well. I think I love all of them. There's not many I don't like.
I think so. For me, it's like when I started reading Discworld, I really enjoyed the early Rincewind stuff, which is a lot of Discworld readers don't necessarily like those that much. They get a lot of like flack for all kinds of reasons. But I had read like a lot of Fafhrd and Grey Mouse's stories by Fritz Leiber, and I've read a lot of Conan stories, and I played a bunch of D&D, and then reading those Color of Magic and Light Fantastic is just really good because you get all the jokes.
Yeah.
And they're really fun there.
I mean, compared to the rest, yes, now that I've read a lot more Discworld, I can recognize they're not of the same quality, but I really enjoyed them when I first read them. If I didn't, because I started with publication order, and even though everyone was saying you should try something, the City Watch books, I thought, no, I want to read from the beginning. And I don't regret it because I did get invested immediately. I love this world that he created.
I think I really appreciate the idea of reading it in publication order. It's what I did too. And it's like you can see the world and Terry Pratchett change together, and that's like obviously technically you can do that with every author in there when you read their books in publication order. But it's few authors where you can see them growing together the same way that you can see with Pratchett, who put so much of his own personality in those books. And it's every time like, this is something that Terry Pratchett was upset with at this specific time in his life. So he has to write a book about it.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you. It's very satisfying to see an author's progression from the beginning, especially with the series. I always prefer to go by publication order if I can.
Yeah, I agree. Ori, that is kind of right. I think the problem with the Rincewind books is that Rincewind is best when he has a very good sort of like partner, like a very good foil going on stuff with him. And sometimes they are really good, and sometimes they are not as good. I think the best one is the terrible kangaroo in the Totally Not Australia book, which is called Scrappy because it's a very bad Skippy the Kangaroo joke.
Scrappy is also, isn't it the name of Scooby-Doo's nephew?
Could be.
Yeah, I think it is, if I remember correctly.
Also, that book is about him solving problems by drinking beer, which is very Australian, also very, something I can relate to.
I guess that's true. Anyway, it's getting late here. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me on. And thank you to all of you in the chat. It's been really fun. But yeah, I need to get to bed now.
You need to get to bed.
Yeah. But thank you again, Raf, very much for hosting this.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciated that. And
I hope all of you have a great day.
We'll try our best. Then have a good night. I mean,
I will. Bye.
Bye. All right. Let me see if Britain is back, and otherwise we can figure out whether we want to go, or I'll just finish that beer, and we all have us an early night. Wouldn't that be something for a change? All right. No, Britain's not back yet. I'll see what happens. Anyway, so yeah, I have not read the listened to the Indira Varma new versions of the audiobooks. Also, I do very much appreciate and enjoy the Witches books, and that's something I find interesting. Right when I started, I first encountered the Rincewind books, and I loved them, and then I very much gravitated towards the City Guard, City Watch books, and the older I get, or the more I read other stuff, the more I go back and enjoy the Witches books in a lot of ways, and the more I see how, despite all the things that Pratchett does about gender roles and gender expectations and stuff like that, and he's obviously not perfect, not by a long shot, but he tries, right? You can see very clearly, like, most dudes like the City Watch books, and most women enjoy the Witches books because they deal with different topics, and having that level of sort of like crime and violence and manly men doing manly stuff with Sam Vimes as a main character, focus character, I guess, in a lot of ways, I guess just appeals to a lot of men if you don't want to, question anything in a lot of ways. And they sometimes find that kind of sad because a lot of the stuff going on in the Witches books is just more interesting on like a human level than stuff in the City Watch books is. Although obviously the City Watch books are, they have all the stuff that's easy to deal with and easy to be mad about, right? They deal a lot with poverty and, class injustice and stuff like that, which, don't get me wrong, it's stuff that I totally understand getting mad about, and I'm constantly mad about it myself. I get that, but the way the Witches look at things like how, say, lack of contact and lack of caring within a society are harmful, right, is, I think, almost more important than the pure landlords being bad kind of stuff that you get in the City Watch books, having people just not talking to someone and then those people dying alone or whatever. The things that people like Granny Weatherwax and Nanny Ogg are constantly trying to figure out. That's almost more fundamental in a lot of ways, and I appreciate Pratchett for doing that. And it sometimes makes me sad that people don't necessarily I don't know, appreciate what he's doing there, I guess, is how I would say that. Also, I've realized I use the word appreciate way too much tonight. I have no idea why. Well, that's the thing, Terry. It's like you start with whatever sounds the best to you. As I said earlier, I think reading them in publication order gives you a specific, experience that I think is worth doing that. But if you're not sure if you want to commit to like a 41 book series or whatever, then just pick a topic that you're interested in and get that one. Because, you know, if you're into rock music, go with soul music. It's a really cool, more or less standalone book. If you're into like media, news media, whatever stuff, get The Truth. If you're into cinema, go with moving pictures. If you're into hating religion or being critical of religion, go with Small Gods or anything else, right? It is very much a pick whatever you want kind of thing. And there's no wrong starting in Discworld, except for The Light Fantastic, which is very much the sequel to Color of Magic, which ends on a literal cliffhanger, or the thing that happens after a cliffhanger is over. Thanks, Colton. I am very glad you do. Weird Sisters is so good with all the Shakespeare jokes, but also all the other fun bits in there. And it's like the first time you get all three witches in like in their full glory and power. It's a good book. Yeah, Mort is an interesting starting point because it's sort of the first Discworld book that has like a typical sort of like Discworld feel in a way that the first three books don't necessarily do. And I do really enjoy Equal Rights. I think it's really cool. But you can see how Discworld is not yet sort of like fully crystallized in Terry Pratchett's mind at that point. There's a lot of stuff that is very malleable, where things happening in those first three books don't necessarily stay in Discworld afterwards because of Pratchett figuring shit out for himself. So Mort's like the first one that does sort of do the Discworld thing in a proper way by having a very sort of coherent story, one that does also get fairly serious in some parts, does have the absurdism at the same time. So I understand why a lot of people like Mort a lot. I think Pyramids is vastly underrated for whatever reason, but the opening sequence in Pyramids is one of the best, like, just like the way it's choreographed, it's just like one of the best like Discworld scenes ever. It's like you have it starts with an assassin doing their final exam at the Assassin's Guild school, and he has to do, basically parkour all over the rooftops and go and do obviously the thing that assassins do, which is kill someone. And you basically follow him jumping from roof to roof and climbing through windows and all of that stuff. And every time he goes on a jump or something, you get a flashback to a different thing that kind of tells his past and sort of catches you up to the whole story. And it's incredibly cinematic the way it is described and the way those basically cut scenes kind of work. And it's just, it shows you what Pratchett is capable of as a writer in something that is still very absurd and ridiculous in a lot of ways. But it is just like, from a sheer craft perspective, it's just impressive how he does that in Pyramids at the beginning. It is very much Mistborn, but it's also Mistborn like 15 years before Brandon Sanderson ever wrote Mistborn. Which I think is partly the problem. Also, Sanderson doesn't do the flashbacks. I don't think he has ever done anything of the sort, because maybe he has in the Stormlight Archives or Warbreaker, but in the 4 books that I'm currently confident of my memory of, which is Elantris and Mistborn Era 1, he avoids anything of that specific sort of techniques and like actually playing around with time and perspective. And he avoids that like the plague. I don't get that reference, Ori, the Blades in the Dark one. But yeah, that pyramid scene. Yeah, I can see how someone who has read Mistborn first will go, well, this feels like Mistborn because he's jumping around a lot in that thing. But he's not burning any metal. But yeah, I'll finish my Redwall reading for now tomorrow, and then I'll do something. First book that I like, first 2025 release that I'm eager to read is Nidio Korafor's Death of the Author, which is out on the 16th, I think. I think the 16th, so in 2 weeks. That's like the first thing that I really want to read. Not in 2 weeks, like in a week and a bit, even better. I'm very much looking forward to that one, and oh yeah, it may just be that as well, but I think as I said, like it's mostly just like a very cinematic approach. Where you have like a lot of like your heist kind of movies, right? It's exactly that. It's like you have your you see your main characters do the thing that they're best at, which is usually do some heisting kind of thing, and then you cross-cut it with like scenes from the past explaining why they end up where they are now, kind of thing. And Pratchett in general, I think, is one of the things that people, I don't know if lots of people recognize that, or I haven't seen many people praise Pratchett for what he does really well, which is having a very visual and cinematic approach to writing. Like the way he describes scenes, he puts in a lot of like visual gags that only work, and jokes that only work if you're able to visualize what he's describing. And the way he sets up scenes is very often very similar to how you would set up scenes in a movie. In the way you frame things, the things you describe, the things you put in, the way you fade out and move to the next thing. He has a very cinematic approach to that, which often I think gets kind of lost under all the puns and word humor that he also puts in there. But I think it's one reason why it is so successful and so accessible to a lot of readers, is that it speaks a language that all of us have grown up with by virtue of using, watching television and going to theater and watching movies and stuff. And I think he's really good at that. It's one of the reasons I think why both Joe Abercrombie and George R. Martin are also so successful in their books, is that they are very good at using a cinematic language and transferring that and converting that into writing. I know it's African futurism, Ori. I'm aware of that specific thing. Although I don't know if it is in the new one. I don't know if the new one counts as African futurism, because I think it is. I'd have to double, check again from what I read from the back cover. I don't know if it's set in Africa or if it is about someone in America, a Black American person, because at that point it would be Afrofuturism, wouldn't it? Or am I confusing the two again? It's complicated. Anyway, she named her book Death of the Author, and there's like no way I'm not going to read that thing when it comes out. It's a very good marketing for the likes of me. And after that, I'm very much lost with books to read this year. But since I have now found my way into all these audiobooks that evil capitalists try to hide from me, I am now spoiled for choice with things that I've always wanted and never had access to. Like, Lord of Light by Roger Zelazny, and Ammonite by Nicola Griffith, which also was behind the Region Lock. Or, if I really feel like it, the Aspect Emperor stuff by R. Scott Baker, or, of course, the second and third volume of the Elric collection from like 2 years ago. So I might just do a lot of rereading for this year and like getting to stuff that I've always wanted to get to and never had access to. So maybe that's what'll happen in 2025, because so far it doesn't look like the most interesting of years with like new release, but maybe it's, me not being aware of what is really interesting to me, or, not being good at picking out stuff in advance, because I, dismiss all the books that are named the 5 miracles of Adolf Hitler or whatever. Right? Those wonderful books that always go like the something of some dude, and then there's all these annoying cozy books about something tea and also something other tea, or something coffee and something other coffee, because it's cozy, and cozy and coffee have the same opening letter. We need alliterations in there because, damn you, Travis Baldry, you fucking ruined an entire genre with one book. That kind of stuff. And I dismiss all of those books just outright because of the titles, which is certainly bad on my part. I'm aware of that. It's just hard to not do that. I haven't seen that yet, Eva. See, the thing also is I've read some of Okorafor's academic writing. I just never had knew which of her fiction stuff to start with, but I've read some essays of hers in different sort of essay collections on fantasy and the fantastic and stuff like that. So I'm very happy to finally have found some place to start, I guess, is what I'm saying. Because with some of these authors, I need sort of something where I can sort of latch my mind onto something and then go, well, now I have a reason that I can justify to myself to read this, and now I can get excited enough to actually try it, because there's a lot of stuff out there. And it's one of the reasons why I struggle with authors like, say, Adrian Tchaikovsky or whatever, right, who have 500 books out there. I'm like, no, I'm overwhelmed by the number of books. I don't know where to start, and everyone telling me where to start won't work. It has to sort of click, feel intuitive, in a very Mormon way. I have to feel that burning in my bosom that tells me which book to pick. Which I guess is what other people would call a mood reader. So I'm glad that Death of the Author did that for Nydia Okorafor. Last year it was The Seventh Whale of Salome, which did that for Silvia Moreno Garcia, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to read more of her books, like Silver Nitrate and her upcoming Witches Meet Dark Academia in New England, which sounds like interesting. Yeah, I've seen the Guy Gavriel Kay thing is out in May. I'm aware of that, but I haven't finished reading the other Guy Gavriel Kay stuff because I get sidetracked by stuff during A Song for Arbonne. Yes, and I know that Ada Palmer has finished her Viking story, so I'm obviously looking for whenever that comes out. I know Cameron Hurley has a new one handed in a manuscript as well, so that's certainly something I'm excited for. If the new Glenn Cook book does actually, the Black Company book does get an audiobook this year, then I'm definitely going for that one. I have not, Colton. No. Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I've heard nothing but good things about Tchaikovsky from everyone that I've spoken to. Everyone has at least one Adrian Tchaikovsky book they like, but I'm just like, it'll come at some point. It'll feel right, and then I'm going to read it, and until then, it's just happening somewhere. What else? Obviously, the new Stephen Erickson one, the No Life Forsaken, is definitely on my list of stuff that I'm going to read when it comes out. And there's a new Chuck Tingle novel, and a new Chuck Tingle novel is something I'm always going to read whenever it comes out. And there's Amal El Motor's The River Has Roots, which a really cool title. So that's going to happen. beyond that, well, I guess I'll find out. But I can finally get to all of those classics that I've always wanted to read and never had access to because of Audible being a bit of a dickhead, like Wizard of the Pigeons by Megan Lindholm, which I've wanted to read for a long time as well. So that's something I'm going to do fairly soon, I'm pretty sure. Exactly, Eva. Exactly, Eva. That's the point. It's like it's choice paralysis. Also, I do really like The Stars Are Legion. I think the Light Brigade is maybe even better in what it does. The Light Brigade basically being what if Starship Troopers, but with time travel and also feminist and anti-capitalist, which is a pretty good pitch for me. The Stars Are Legion I found really interesting in where it goes near the end, and Cameron Hurley is just really good at writing about way too many bodily fluids and is very good at writing angry people. She's not good at writing not angry people, but there's always enough to be angry about, so it usually works out for her. Yeah, I've heard about the Guns of the Dawn thing. It's a good title, but I always confused it with Guns of Avalon, so there's my problem there. And the Devils, yeah, maybe. I mean, it'll be entertaining, I'm sure of that. I just don't know how much more Joe Abercrombie I need. Like, I've read all of the first Law books, and I felt like at the end of the second trilogy, the whatever it was called, the Wisdom of Crowds, the something, that one, Age of Madness, right? At the end of the Age of Madness trilogy, I was just like done with Abercrombie's sort of like brutal nihilism. So I don't know if he's able to sort of do something different enough with the Devils for me to find it interesting again, because it's another trilogy, so I know it's not going to end, it's not going to be a standalone like the Heroes or Red Country or whatever. It's going to be like the opening for a trilogy, and it's like the first Law was already very, very, very low magic in any case, so I don't know if he's able to do something different enough for me to be excited about it. But I mean, I'll read it, don't get me wrong, but I am not as excited about it as other people are. Well, vampires and werewolves are obviously a cool thing. The City of Troy can be good, can be really, really bad, depending on what you're doing with it. As long as you don't get like all Dan Simmonsy on it, I guess it's fine. We'll see. But I mean, obviously, I'm going to read it. It's also coming out in May, I think, sometime in May. So I have it on my list of stuff that I'm definitely going to check out. I mean, even if I don't end up making a video about it, I guess if you're on BookTube in any sort of like capacity, you kind of have to know what The Devils is about by the end of the year, just because everyone will be talking about it. And so I'm definitely going to read it. Just not as, I just don't, I mean, not enthusiastic about it, I guess. Yeah, but beyond that, I mean, I'm gonna do like a full-on Elric reread, because I've read a lot of Elric that I have had access to in different audio collections over the years that are not on Audible in any form, that I bought on CD and whatnot. And I've read a lot of Elric, but I've never done like a full sort of like front to back Elric read through. So I'm very excited to do that now that I have access to the whole thing. And after that, I just pick stuff that I'm excited about. Also, I'm definitely going to read the Power Broker by Robert Caro, because it finally got its own audiobook, unabridged audiobook this year. It's coming out in like 2 weeks, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, end of January. It's a 66-hour audiobook, and I've wanted to read the Power Broker for a long time. It's not going to make me happy. I already know that. Also, 66 hours of nonfiction about city planning in New York is maybe not the most exciting topic, unless you're, I guess, weird like me. But I'm very excited about it because, as I said, I've wanted to read this for a long time. Yeah, exactly. It's the 50th anniversary for the Power Broker, and I haven't read it yet. And I think it's one of those books that, once again, I feel are really important to read if you want to have like a larger sort of like understanding of commercial writing in the last century. Which book also? The Power Broker, about Robert Moses, the biography, in case you mean that one. Yeah, The Power Broker by Robert Caro. He's apparently also currently writing a multi-volume biography of Lyndon B. Johnson, which, I don't know, not necessarily something I need to read. Although there's some really cool audio samples of Lyndon B. Johnson talking about how his pants are too small, too tight, and stuff like that, which is really funny. But yeah, and Lyndon B. Johnson drunk driving. That's when America still had responsible presidents that you could trust in. But yes, the Power Broker, monster of a book. Yeah, that's the one. The Power Broker by Robert Caro. Although they put Power Broker in 2 words and not 1 word there also. But yeah, definitely that's going to happen. Some other essay collections of Ursula Le Guin are also getting a new audiobook release. Is it the Voices of the Night or something like that? It's one of those something of the night titles, I think. Which is, I think, the one that has the whatever it's called, the one that Liam did talk about, and the one that Philip Chase talked about, the From Elfland to Poughkeepsie essay in it. I think that's in the Voice of the Night one collection, I think. But there's like 5 different essay collections by Ursula Le Guin, so who knows? So yeah, that's something I'm going to read. Roland Barthes' Mythologies also finally got an audio unabridged audio release, so I'm going to read that because I like to punish myself with annoying post-structuralists, I guess. I mean, the Robert Moses one book has had a huge impact on all kinds of like fiction writers ever since, because he was, he won a Pulitzer back then, and it did sort of like, for the first time, I think, in a mainstream text that was sort of a public, more like a pop science or pop nonfiction biography kind of book, right? That was aimed at a larger public, but it did show how sort of individuals can sort of impact larger systems, and how those systems then can be, structurally racist. The famous part being, of course, the whole thing about the bridges being too low for the large buses to go under, so only people that drive cars are able to get to the parks in New York, which obviously made it harder to impossible for non-white people in New York to get there, and stuff like that. And it's just like parts of it, right? Like Robert Moses also famously preventing some parts of the metro system to be built out, and other forms of public, basically throttling public transport in all kinds of places in New York, which obviously impacts marginalized groups to a much larger, much more than it does, white middle class people in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think it did have like a massive impact on just like the understanding that this is a thing that happens, and like the way we build cities does actually, impact people differently depending on who you are and where you live and so forth. And then it was important for that, and I think it has had I've certainly seen a lot of like fiction writers that I enjoy reading mention the book over the years and going like, well, that's something when I read it that had like a huge impact on what I did. That's a clever idea. Also, not planning too much, I think, works the best, because something will always come up. It's like I'll never run out of books. I don't even know what Night Runner is, which, definitely a me problem. And the Guy Gavriel K. I plan on coming back to Guy Gavriel K. though. That's something that'll happen. Gonna go through Song for Arbonne and then talk about how it relates to the actual like Albigensian Crusade, and maybe pull out my copies of those different chronicles of the time, which for reasons I do in fact own. Which just happens. So that might be interesting to talk about that in the same way that I talked about, say, the Arthurian literature with the last one. The second one from the Fiona Bar tapestry, and the way, in that regard, I want to go back to that and talk about, some good old Cathars. Yeah, exactly. Also, that's kind of the point. Like, I feel like Kara with the Power Broker was like the first person to put that into a book outside of like an academic context, where people who buy books that win prizes, like a Pulitzer Prize, could actually went and read a book and go like, oh shit, maybe there's something to that. So I think it's important just for that historically, and it has, had a huge impact on like how people who read that kind of book afterwards create cities in their fantasy worlds or their science fiction worlds. So in that case, I'm excited to read it. Okay. I've obviously heard of the name Lynn whatever the name. Flueling, however you pronounce that. Gods. I've read the name before, but I haven't read the books. Necromancers are certainly what I find interesting. Cat burglars, I don't know if I'm that into that. But necromancers, I'm totally into. So I think like another one that I'm going to get to finally is the Southern Reach stuff by Jeff Vandermeer, because that one also has been, for whatever reason, region locked for Europeans for a while, except for the first book, which is so stupid, because I remember back in the day when the first trilogy was completely out, you could get the whole thing in like one audiobook as a bind up, basically. And I saw that, and then I didn't buy it because I didn't have money at the time, and then it was region locked away from me, which is super frustrating. So I'm going to read the Southern Reach thing, so I know what everyone is talking about, and I can then also be mad about it, or tell everyone to go and read it because it's really good, which one of those two. All right. We've been doing this for like, I guess, 2.5 hours after I figured out why my audio was fucked. So let's maybe slowly end this, and I'll publish the second Redwall video for the day, and maybe make some notes for the next Redwall video, which will be about Marlfox, which is about Marlfoxes, which may or may not be magical foxes, trying to steal a tapestry from a monastery. So maybe fox burglars, I guess. No necromancers, though. Yeah, I think that I've only read one Jeff Vandermeer book so far, and that was, of course, Finch, which is really good. Finch was really good. It's an ambergris novel, and it's sort of like, what if spies and underground stuff in Nazi-occupied Paris, but the Nazis are in fact shrooms? Yes, I do have to read the Armageddon Rag, and there's so much more stuff that I have to read, Colton. It's going to happen. All right. Yeah. See you all somewhere. Maybe for those breakfast writing sprints if I do them again, or for something else in the coming days. And yeah, hopefully next week on Matt's channel for like the actual pub again. All right. See you guys.